Hey everybody, it's Dave with Dave and Will's Guitar. Today I thought I would do a analysis of Hotel California from a music theory standpoint, where we just kind of walk through the chord progression, what's going on with the key, with the notes in the scale, things like that. So figure we'll just get started. The progression of that song, now there's a guitar with a capo on the 7th fret. We'll walk through that one a little bit too, but first we'll just do the basic progression. So we have B minor, then F sharp 7, then A, E, and then G, D, then E minor, and then F sharp 7 again, or F sharp 7. So now if we're looking at the key, trying to figure out what it is for that song, a lot of times your key is going to be your first chord in the progression or your final chord in the progression, or both. Not always, but a lot of times. Now that one, we start with B minor, which if we're looking at in the key of B minor, that would be your 1 chord. And then you have F sharp 7, which is your 5, your dominant 7 chord in that key. So far that makes sense. Then we have this A, which falls into the key of B minor. At first here with the F sharp 7, we're dealing with the harmonic minor version of the scale. So the regular B minor scale, B natural minor they call it, or B Aeolian if you're talking about modes, it would be this. So we'd have B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B would be the B natural minor. And this F sharp chord, we have this A sharp note. So that's going to be what's called harmonic minor, where you raise the 7th scale degree. So you can also use solfege for these. So you have, your major scale, you have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. In the minor scale, you have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So here with the harmonic minor compared to the natural minor, we're going do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So we're bringing that T in from that major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. In that 7th scale degree, we're raising it to make it A sharp instead of A. Because our key of B minor, we have 2 sharps, C sharp and F sharp. B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. And now we're adding in that B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A sharp, B. So into that 2nd chord, that F sharp. But then we go to the A major, that A is back to the natural minor, what it would be a natural minor, which would be just an A natural, and then we go to E, which that has another altered note in it, but let's come back to that. So E major, because in the key of B minor, that would actually be an E minor, not an E major. So we have to talk about that. But then we go to G major, which is in the key of B minor. That's your 6th chord. B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's your 6. And then D major, which is your 3 chord. And then E minor, which is your 4 chord. And then F sharp 7, which is your 5, or your dominant 7 chord. So it makes sense to say it's in B minor, because you're ending with 4 to 5 in B minor, or 5, 7, again, and then coming back to the strong B minor on the first beat. So most of those chords, all of them except for one, I guess, really fit into the key of B minor. So it makes sense, to say it's in that key. Some people might argue for D major, but really I would say no, because D major is the relative major to B minor. So that's just starting the same scale on the do, re, mi on D, and then playing the same notes, same key, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Just do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So to me, B minor seems like, from a theoretical standpoint, it makes more sense, because you have 4 to 5 to 1 at the end, back then 1 to 5, all that. But then we have some other, there's some funky kind of modal stuff going on there. Now, part of what's happening in that song, and you hear that in this other guitar on the 7th fret with the capo, where you have this walk down, this chromatic walk down. We have this. That. Oh. So we're having this ba, ba, Now the chord there is F sharp. This note is A sharp, so we're not having that F sharp in the bass there. You know, we have this, So now the bass note there is the A sharp. And then the next chord, we have A. Again, with the capo, it gets confusing because this is like a D chord, but it's really an A. And we have this kind of D sus2 chord. But then, so we went B, A sharp, A. And then the next chord has G sharp. So it's like we walk down, if we did on this string, we go B, A sharp, A, G sharp. So that's during the E chord. So now that's the third of that E chord in the bass. Just like here, this chord, the F sharp chord, we had the third of that chord, A sharp, in the bass. So we're going B, which is the root of the B minor chord, to A sharp, which is the third of that, the next chord, F sharp, then the root of the A chord. I'm just doing a basic, picking with this up. And then the G sharp here, I mean, it really ends up being like this is the third of your E chord. This is really like I think like a E9, really there. No, yeah, like an E9, really, over G sharp. Well, if you were just looking at the guitar part, when the bass comes in, it's doing the roots of those chords, basically, outlining like root fifth octave. So then we go to G. So it's like we keep alternating. We had the root of the B minor in this guitar. We had the third of the F sharp 7, the root of the A, basically A sus2, whatever you want. And then we had the third of the E major chord, E9, E7, whatever. Then now we have the root of the G chord here. Again, this looks like a C, but with the capo. But in guitar, we call it a C, but it's really a G. It's the C of caged, if you're familiar with the cage system for G. And then we go to D here, which again, with the capo, this is, we call it in guitar, we call this a G, but it's really a D. So this is the G of caged for the chord of D major, for D major. So that one, now in this guitar part, that they could have done the third in the bass there, but from what I remember, that they actually do the root in the bass of that one. But it could have come down B, A sharp, A, G sharp, G, and we could have just done the same thing here. Had the third in the bass there. I think they kind of do that. I think they do that something like, let me see. And then, yeah, so eventually they end up, the lowest note they hit is the root, but they actually do this in the bass line of that, so they walk down to it, But then after that, you have this chord, which is an E minor 7, just again with the capo, looks like an A minor 7, but it's that, the A of cage shape, like an A minor shape for E minor. So, and this is a lot of information. So, and then we go back up to the F sharp 7. So, but the basic idea that for me that I'm trying to get to is that you have that chromatic walk down from B. So you have B, A sharp, A, G sharp, G, then you can do F sharp. And then when it comes to the E minor chord, and all of a sudden it's not going chromatically anymore. It's back. It's just E minor 7, and then up to F sharp. But that chromatic walk down is very common. That kind of thing. My funny Valentine. It's very common in a lot of songs. Well, sometimes, like Simple Pilots, for instance, you'll have like plush. You would take that progression. They like to put that chromatic walk down in the bass, like as like the lowest notes in the chord. So like in plush, you have G, then D over F sharp. You're walking down G, and then F, and then C over E. So again, you have this alternation where you have the root in the bass, then the third of the next chord in the bass, then the root in the bass, the third of the next chord. And this song, this guitar part does it up here on the 7th fret, but when the actual bass guitar comes in, it's doing just more, or whatever it is, you know, outlining power chords basically of those chords, you know, with the root and the bass every time, you know. So it's kind of interesting. Now, another thing that creates that progression is, you know, if you go B to F sharp, you're doing 1 to 5. You know, tonic is the fancy word for your 1. You know, your 1 to 5, the dominant, tonic to dominant. You know, 1 to 5 in the key of B minor. Again, with the harmonic minor version, let's go with that raise the A sharp. If it wasn't that, if it was the 5 that comes naturally in the scale, natural minor or Aeolian, the mode, it would be an F sharp minor. You know, on a dark desert highway, you know, instead of you know, a B to walk down into A, but it doesn't have that as the A sharp. So you have 1 to 5 in the key of B minor, but the harmonic minor. And then if you go A to E, that's 1 to 5 in the key of A, you know, but we're not in the key of A, right? We're in the key of B minor still, you know. And then you have G to D, which is 1 to 5 in the key of G, you know. So it's kind of like you're doing almost like creating these power chords, like B to F sharp, 1 to 5, and then A to E, which is 1 to 5 in that key, root to 5th, G to D, you know. So that's part of what creates that chromatic progression there, because if we do, for instance, B minor here, and then we go to F sharp, but with the 3rd in the bass, the A sharp, it looks like this, right? So we have B minor, that's the E of cage, you know, for the E minor shape with a capo there for B minor. Then we go to F sharp, and now we have the C of cage. I'm making a C major with a capo here. So but with this note in the bass, that's the 3rd of the chord, the A sharp. So B to F sharp over A sharp, basically, you know, it's a 7 chord for F sharp 7. And then if we come back here, now it's almost like we do the same thing, but now we make a major chord. So now we have the E of cage for A, but we're making a major, so not minor. So the middle's down here. So A major to E over G sharp. See how it looks the same though? It almost looks exactly the same. Only thing is that we have a minor chord here, and then this major chord in inversion, what's called first inversion. That's the 3rd of the chord. The chord is F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. This is the A sharp in the bass. So that's what if you have root 3rd, 5th, it's like, again, you're taking this root and putting it up here. That's the first inversion. The second inversion would be now to pick this note up here as well and have C sharp in the bass. C sharp, F sharp, A sharp. So again, a lot of information, I know, but. So B minor, F sharp over A sharp, and then A major, E over G sharp, looks almost the same. Then you go back again, same thing, G major to D over F sharp. So that, see how you have, that creates, doing those inversions like that creates this boom, 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 the chromatic walk down there. So now when you reverse that, you have what's called a circle of fifths progression. You know, if we went F sharp first, let's say we just do the basic chords. If we went F sharp back here, it's going B minor to F sharp. If we went F sharp to B minor, and then E to A, and then D to G, that's called a circle of fifths progression. So instead of going like this, root 5th, root 5th, root 5th, if you go this way, F sharp to B, to E, to A, D, G, that's a circle of fifths progression. So this is almost like they took a circle of fifths progression and kind of flipped it almost. I mean, flipped it, not a circle fourths progression. I don't, you know, that's a different thing. But it's like instead of going here F sharp B, they're going B F sharp, and then here instead of going E A, I'm going A, and you know, and this progression, you know, is fairly common as well. Circle of fifths progression is also common, but this one is common. But this one doesn't have, that I know of, as fancy a name as specific, you know, like that. Like the circle of fifths has its own name, so. So that's, you have that going on, and now another thing to look at is here, we talked about how we have B minor to F sharp, and then, so that's the harmonic minor, the 5 chord in harmonic minor. Then we have this A major, which has now lowered this A sharp down to A, so B, A sharp, A, within those chords, B, and then F sharp, there's that A sharp, then an A, it's lowered back to A. But then we have this G sharp in the key of E. So now, normally, if you were looking at it from more of a modal standpoint, a G sharp in the key of B minor creates a mode called Dorian. So now we would go B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A instead of G, A. So we go Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Te, Do instead of Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Te, Do. So we're raising, instead of doing G here, we're raising it to the G sharp. So that creates a minor scale that's a little less dark sounding, you know. So it's like you took the sixth from your major scale and put it in your minor scale. Just like the harmonic minor takes the seventh from your major scale. So Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, and puts it in the minor scale. Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do. Dorian, instead of changing the seventh, it changes the sixth. So Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do. So that's the major scale. Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do. Or La, Te, Do. Latte, like, you know, coffee. But so we have the E major there instead of E minor. E minor is what would have normally come there because the G natural is in the scale. But now we're changing that from the E major. So when you hear the solo over that and things like that, you'll hear with that note. Oftentimes he's kind of, you know, bending into that G sharp instead of playing the G. So it makes it more like the major chord. But then G comes, and now that note is back to what it would normally be. Do, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, G natural in the B minor scale. So that note's back to normal, D is back to normal, E minor is part of it. It's all it's called diatonic. It's all in that key. You don't have that chromaticism naturally within the just the regular natural minor scale. And then F sharp, you're back. Again, if we're looking at that, we have 1 in the minor, your tonic, your 5 is your dominant with the raised 7th scale degree in the key, the harmonic minor. Then the A natural now, so A major, that's your flat 7 chord. Well, if you're comparing it to major, it's flat 7, but in minor, that's just your 7th chord. And then E major, which is your 4 chord, but now it's major instead of kind of like what they did here with the 5 chord and made it major. We raised the 3rd, took an E minor shape with the capo, made it major. Now we're hitting E minor shape here and raising the note on the G string up a fret, a 3rd of the chord to make it major. So that is your 4 chord is major there. Then you have G, which is your flat 6. Again, if you're comparing it to major, because that note would be up a fret in the key of B major, but here you're just 6 if you're in minor. Depends on how you're talking about it, addressing it. And then D is your 3 chord. And again, that would be flat 3 if you're comparing it to major, because those are the notes 3, 6, and 7 that you lower from minor compared to major. So, but yeah, just 3 chord in your major. And those all have fancy names too. So you have tonic, dominant, then you have your leading tone is your 7th. That's just the fancy name for that. And then you have your subdominant, which is your E, and then the G you have is your mediant chord, or no, submediant, sorry, submediant 6, and then D is your mediant chord, and then you have E minor, which would be your subdominant, E minor, and then F sharp would be your dominant again. So it's interesting. So again, you get that chromatic walk down like that within those chords, but when they're doing it, this higher guitar is doing that, like the Stairway to Heaven kind of thing, or My Funny Valentine, but the bass is just doing, or whatever it is, whatever, that kind of thing. So it's just doing the roots and fifths, within that of the chord, without those inversions, you know. So, so it's interesting. Then you have the chorus, and you have similar chords. You know, then chorus, you go to G, which is we've already done, you know, before we did this, the 6 chord, you know, and then D, the 3 chord, you know, and then F sharp or F sharp 7, your 5 chord, and then back to B minor, you know, and then you have the little walk up, just walks up the scale to get you back to G, 6 to 3, and then we have the E minor again, 4 to 5, and then we're back to E minor, and that's the whole thing. The chorus, you know, it almost feels happier like that. You know, it feels more major a little bit for, you know, a minute. You know, some people might say, oh, they've, you know, well, not necessarily modulated or a key change. You know, but it's not really a key change because it's your relative key. You know, so it's all the notes have stayed the same. It's just now the focus has changed. It's instead of sounding dark and minor E, it sounds a little happier. You know, welcome to Hotel California. But then here, all of a sudden, you know, you're back to where you were. Such a love. And for a brief, yeah, it's really, to me, I'd still say you're just B minor all the way through there, you know. So, and that's it. You know, the rest is just, in terms of the basic structure and the chords and things like that, it's just repetition of that. So, so yeah, hopefully you found that interesting, and it's a lot of information, I know, so we can walk through more of those concepts as we go here, but yeah. And this video, I should have mentioned it from the start. I guess it's you know, it takes knowing a good bit about the theory, but it's not a beginner necessary video. You know, it's knowing some of that information already. You know, so but yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it and got something out of it, and yeah, see you next time.